Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. It's your favorite program, Socialing the Distance. This week we have a real treat. Kate Gray, she's a Nike athlete, Olympian, and she runs her team Boss now. She had a fantastic season this year. It was in some ways heartbreaking, but also I think incredible. And great to see you, Kate.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So do you guys live in Boulder and then you train around Boulder, correct? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, live in Boulder, train in Boulder, and then do some altitude camps in Crested Butte, which is where Emma Coburn is from.
And you're coached by Joe Bossard, Emma Coburn's husband. How many athletes are in your group?
Now, I want to say there are 10 women. It's like keep continually changing, but it's around 10. Yeah, and they, which is similar to what it was in Bowerman.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's always a little bit of a flux. So
sure.
I probably can count, but plus or minus 1 or 2, it's 10.
And you've been with Team Boss for a year now?
Less than a year. I came in January 5th.
You have had, you've been over your career with some formidable coaches. You had a fine coach in high school at Marlboro, and then you were at Yale, and then you dealt with Gags, who, is a life-changing experience. He's still, I've known him for almost 30 years, and when he gets wound up, I could just give him a little bit of room,
Mm-hmm.
And he's fascinating. I've watched them with his athletes. They absolutely adores all of you. And I'll get back to him in a little bit. I want to talk to him. And then now you're with Joe. What's Joe like for those of us who have not met him, maybe just observed him at a track meet?
Joe, well, first of all, he's my age, so it's different than Gags or any of the other coaches in that we are the same age, and that's just kind of by that nature a different relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I generally like to say that coaches tend to be either like their secret sauce is either the personality, kind of the cult of personality, or like the science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Gags, for example, just, as you're saying, like people just love running for him, and they would do anything for him. He gets that extra little bit out of you because you want to just die for him on the track, right? Other coaches maybe have just a lot of that base of knowledge, and they're always doing more of the kind of tinkering around with different types of workouts. That'd be like, I don't know. I guess a lot of the younger coaches tend to be much more into, they know all the history of the Lydiard system and whatever, and they're like doing like very specific things with VO2 max workouts and things, and Gags would never know any of that when he was coaching.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, moral of the story, Joe's like a nice combo of the two. I mean, he definitely is a student of the sport, I think, by nature of being so young. Him and Emma have been together since they were like 18. And so he's been, and he was a standout runner in college. So he's been around high level running and then like very interested in her training for, I guess, over 10 years now. And I think because he is younger, he definitely has, there's a big drive to always be learning and like trying out new things. And he's like very open to suggestion in that way. But I think what he has also the like coaching personality that is a little bit almost harder, I think, to train into someone. It's kind of like you have it or you don't a little bit. It's really interesting seeing him interact with all the different athletes in this group. He's very good at like, I don't know, kind of teasing out what is going to be the motivating factor for a specific athlete, and then having having unique relationships with each of the different athletes, and being able to get them motivated and get the most out of themselves, which again, I think is a unique trait, and especially unique in someone that's like barely just 30. and so that was, I think, probably one of the more surprising things with working with him, is because obviously at one point, like, you can always learn the details of training, but it's like that extra kind of interpersonal, stuff that does make a difference, but it's kind of harder almost to pinpoint.
What was the name of your high school coach at Marlboro?
Jimmy Grant.
Okay. Tell me about that experience. You were a fine high school runner. I mean, the stats pages say you ran 2:10:31. You were a pretty darn good cross country runner too, and you made it into the state meet in California, which is, I mean, I coached up at Bellarmine, and it's a challenging meet to get into.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Yes, I love my high school coach. Honestly, he's still like one of the main motivating factors for me. He is someone, if anything, he's the only coach I've ever had who has always been in the back of my mind, like, that I am at my core an 800-meter runner, and I can be with the best in the world. And it's funny because I was never that good in high school. Like, I was pretty good. I ran 2:10.
Yeah.
But in his mind, I think just seeing a little bit of the range of me being able to run whatever, a 25-second 200, and then also win state in cross country. Like, I, even in that, in high school, that amount of range, I think he just realized that, like, I don't know, I could do a lot of different things. And for some reason, he noticed that I was good at 800. And he was just, every other coach I've had since Jimmy has tried to move me to the 15. Because again, I can do aerobic work, and I can, I'm generally like a strong runner somewhat. But Jimmy's always held fast. And it's funny, every few years I'll text him, and if I'm running the 15, he's like, Kate, what are you doing? Get back to the 8. Even though it's been over 10 years since I've trained with him. And honestly, even this year, like, I waffled a tiny bit when everything happened, and it was clear that Shelby wasn't running the 15. I was like, oh gosh, like, should I run the 15 at USA's? And honestly, when we decided to keep with the 8, it was like my clicking moment was like, Jimmy, this is what Jimmy would think was the right answer. Like this, I know I'm better at the 8. I know that worldwide I'm better at the 8. And like, I don't want to shy away from that. And literally, like, he's the person that has, for some reason, instilled this insane confidence in me. In terms of the specifics of what we did for training, I don't know if anything was that specific. Like, I can barely remember. It was high school running. I don't know.
No issues. Yeah, no, I believe coaching is both an art and a science. And I think that you could have the greatest coaches in the world, but if you're not confident in them, and if the coach-athlete relationship, it's not going to make it. So I'm fascinated with your coach at Yale. What was your coach at Yale's name?
Mark Young.
And what was Mark like?
Mark is he was like a storied coach. I mean, when I was there, I want to say he'd been there for 30 years, maybe longer.
Wow.
He retired. My final year was his retirement year. So, but yeah, like, so I have people that are mentors of mine that are 20 years older than I am that were also coached by Coach Young. So there's this like whole history of Yale athletes who've gone with him. And he was also a great runner. He was a standout, actually 400-meter runner. Like, he, I don't know, ran a little bit post-collegiately and was, had some, like, supposedly people from back in the day, like that he was just a monster on the track, especially in the kind of East Coast indoor circuit.
Sure.
So it was kind of fun. I mean, with him, we had also, because I was one of the only athletes there that would continually make it to regionals and the nationals, we had a lot of just one-on-one time. He definitely was like a grandfatherly, whatever figure to me throughout school, especially since I was so far from California. And again, I think similar to high school, the specifics of my training were I was never like the college standout runner. We just knew there was a lot of potential, and in a way, I definitely was not overtrained. And I think it just he let me. He definitely like gave me some leeway to kind of experiment with my life a little bit in college. Like I definitely was not the classic like over anal runner. I took a semester off of college to travel. I would always travel in the summers. I many times would come to like January completely out of shape and whatever. And like obviously he got me in line, but it was very much like a forgiving relationship in that sense, and that like I felt cared for by him like I was able to kind of go through that growth phase.
What was your major in college?
Environmental studies.
Are you going to go to graduate school?
I mean, at one point I would have said yes, but now it's been a long time. Yeah, I mean, possibly.
Yeah, no, well, look, I'm in my 60s and I'm thinking of going back and finishing my PhD. So it's you get in these places where you're just kind of going, what's the new thing? What do I want to do? And you shelve some things and you kind of go forward. What was interesting? Sorry about that. What was interesting to me about the season? I first saw you this season at the weekend with the Portland Track Classic and the Stumptown. And so here's my theory about you, because I've watched you run for a few years and I've never told you this. I always think you need about 3 or 4 races. And I know when you're ready to race, when you get really aggressive over the last 50 or 60 meters, but you also have this look on your face at the beginning of a race when you're a little bit annoyed. And when you were at the Diamond League final, you were a little annoyed, it seemed to me, at the beginning of the race. And I'm kind of going, and I'm sitting, I'm watching it over here on Peacock, right? And I'm kind of going, yeah, she's ready to race, And it was interesting to watch you, because I thought she ran a totally gaudy Olympic trials race. How did you feel about that? Do you want to talk about it, or did that motivate you for the rest of the season? How did you place it this year?
Yeah, I'm fine talking about it. I still don't fully know how to feel about it because I really don't know what happened. Like, Thank you. I do feel like it was gutsy. I feel like I went for it. I just honestly didn't have the legs the last 100 meters, and that doesn't happen to me often. And I think what sucked so bad about it was this feeling that like somehow I had choked, like somehow that there was a mental component to it. Yeah. And at my core, I just can't see that because I just don't ever choke like that. Like I get nervous. But again, I was very nervous that over like way more so than I'd been in a long time. So maybe that just caught up with me. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like, I did run in lane 2 for most of the race, which looking back, like maybe that I could have done that a little bit better, but I don't know. I went for it and I'm proud of me going for it. And then I just didn't. And then my legs kind of like came out from under me in a way. And it was interesting. It did motivate me for the rest of the season because I think I knew that I had more than that like my all out wasn't 159. And so it was good that I was able to just get right back on the horse. I mean, it could have literally been as simple as like, I needed a few more races to feel comfortable. I think one of the things with the nerves around the trials is it was very clear to me that it had been so long since I had raced 8s. Like, it had really, I mean, it had been since 2016 that I had raced rounds of like championships 8s. So I think I was just feeling a tiny bit not comfortable. And then each race over the summer, I was just feeling more and more like, okay, I remember how to race these. Even though I raced a few 8s early in the season, it was like I was leading the whole time, so it wasn't quite the same. The other thing, honestly, that was, again, with the nerves, that was a tiny bit of a thing was like, I was so, because over the trials, I think I just was getting, obviously, like it's such a big event that more so than I've ever had before, I like couldn't get food down. Like I was very just, you know, the feeling when you're so nervous that you're like not hungry. And so I was forcing myself, but my only other thought was like, maybe by the third day of it, I was just more depleted. And sometimes that's like, that would then lead to that kind of feeling at the end of a race. Cause I mean, there's no real, for me, I don't really understand why, like within 3 days, literally all I did was sleep and eat. And then I ran great and I continued to run great, you know? So it was obviously very close. Like I was very close to whatever, but it wasn't that day.
How has, you were with the Bowerman Track Club for a long time, without getting into specifics. How has the Shelby Houlihan situation affected you? And I'm not asking you to give me your opinion on it. That's not, I think that's a very private thing. And there's been enough written and junk thrown out there. I don't like it either way. But you knew her and you hung out with her and, you know, you guys were probably close. How does that affect you? How was that affecting you? And has that affected you?
It didn't, I wouldn't say it affected me in terms of my performance with the trials. I was happy that, I mean, it was I felt like it was good timing that I was in the second week. The fact that it all came out like on Monday. And then I want to say the first races were on Thursday or something, or Friday. That would have been a lot. And even, I mean, I can't imagine everyone in that group, like even for me, just being somehow kind of related to the group, I felt like I was fielding a lot of questions and there was a lot of emotional energy, and I wasn't even in the group. So at that point, right? So I think it was a lot of emotional energy for everyone in that group dealing with it. But yeah, for me, it wasn't affecting my performance, and it's just incredibly sad. Like she is a friend of mine, and I mean, this is our life, and it's like, so it's very sad.
When you were with the Bowerman Track Club, I've known Jerry since he started coaching. And most of the time I would see him in an elevator in Europe with one of his athletes. Okay. Or I'd see him out at Stanford, even though I lived in Madison, because, you know, you just get really busy. And then when he moved out with the Bowerman Club, what did you learn from working with Bowerman Track Club and Jerry in particular during that time? Did you take lessons from that?
Yes. I mean, first of all, that's by far the highest caliber group I've ever been with. And so everyone, both on the men's and women's side, I think whenever you were around that amount of excellence, you just learn by simply just watching people kind of what it takes to operate on this level. The amount of dedication people have, the amount of love they have for their sport and their craft, how much work they're putting in. So that was so special. And I think also, like, in a way more than any other group, it's so international focused. Like people really, which is funny because I understand that they're not racing that much, but just like the sight line is so much. It's like USAs aren't even a thing. We are like, we're focused fully on medals. And in a way, it was hard for me at first, because I remember that one of the first years I had to remind myself, like, actually, no, for my events, it's a huge deal for me to make the team. It's not like you're not yet at the level where I can just blow off USAs. Maybe, I mean, I guess in the middle distances, it's like you can never really be at that level. But it was like, again, such a high sight line, which again, I think I learned from. I think it's like you're not afraid of anyone in the world, or we really are. We are international athletes, and we're fully preparing to be the best on the international stage, which I think, again, is just was great for me as my development. And then, I mean, in terms of the workouts, I am like the whole fall schedule, everything we did, I think what did I learn? A little bit what it takes to be like a distance-oriented athlete at that level. I mean, honestly, in terms of like my decision to go to back to the 8, I think one of it is just seeing, oh man, like I really am not the 5K, the 1500 5K athlete. And I'm like, I can't fully hang with these people on these workouts. And so it's clear to me that I am an excellent athlete and I have strengths that are like great, but these are not them, if that makes sense. So that was something that I learned. And I think, and I mean, yeah, I was open about how, especially in the fall with like the mile repeats and the different things that we would do, that I was like consistently not able to finish workouts. But that said, a lot of people were on that level. And I think it did get me over this idea. I think I used to think like, once you get to a certain level, everything should be easy and you're never going to try hard again and everything just comes. And I think people like, it's not the case. Like people are constantly pushing themselves. They're constantly falling short in workouts, but continuing to push. And really like, that's how you get to those levels to like medal contenders, right? And I think that taught me like, do not be afraid of failing in workouts. It's funny now I see people like in this group, like they're all upset if they can't finish a workout. I'm like, fuck that. not, sorry, that's bad, but not, it just like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's okay. Like it's fine to not finish a workout sometimes. It doesn't mean you're a bad athlete. It means you tried and you learned something and you're going to continue going, you know? And so in a way, like now I think I've gained a lot of strength from that. But yeah.
The women's 800 now, I mean, I've been writing about the sport since the late 1970s, okay? And my theory is American running goes like this, okay? And in the 90s, Americans accepted mediocrity with several exceptions. There were times when the 5,000 championship at a U.S. thing was won in 13:45. That's all that they could do. I went to the Gothenburg World Champs in 95, and an American ran 14:28 in the heats just to compete. And I didn't understand that because I always trained with people who were much better than I was. Your attitude and your approach to it, I find is fascinating. And I find that it's really illustrated with those 3 hot 800s you ran after the Olympic trials. You ran 3 PBs in a row, which was pretty significant. And you went from 159s to 158s to 157s. And then you ran that mile where you just cranked the last, 100. And I was really impressed with that. I mean, the time 4:27, and you said, yeah, that's okay. But you were running like, 4:18 pace. And it was pretty cool to see you take some people down. What was different about those 3 800s? Why did that, after the Olympic trials, your season just went dynamo hum and you went boom, boom, boom. And you had one race, I think that was in the 158. It was Brussels or you didn't seem happy with it. And then you came back to the finals and you just cranked it. Talk to me about the 3 races where you ran PBs. Were you surprised with that at all? Had you kind of expected it? How do you, now with the benefit of a little bit of time, where do you place that?
It was both. I expected it, but it was still in a fun way surprising for it to happen. Me going to the 8, again, the reason I even went to the 8 is what I tell everyone is like, after 2019, I saw the Doha final, gut reaction was I could have been there. I think I wrote in a journal somewhere, like on my best day, I could medal basically in the 800. And so as soon as I knew that, it was very clear in my mind, like that's the way to go. Even if I know it's harder to make the team or not harder, but well, right now we have 2 medalists so yes, like it is hard to make the team in the 800, but in my mind, like it's, once you're there, if you're a medal contender, like that's worth it. And yeah, so I've always thought, again, coming back to my freaking high school coach, who still like is the little angel on my shoulder, that like I can be a superb 800 meter runner and that I should not shy away from that. And I think there's also an element a little bit where for so long I thought like I would start to lose that as I got older. And the more it just became clear, like I wasn't losing it yet. It's like, okay, why am I waiting? I'm like, let me just do this until I actually am shown that I've lost it. Right. But like but don't assume that before it happens. And so not surprised. So in a way, like I did this because I expected to be that good, basically. Like that's why I chose to do the 800. And number two is like as the season was progressing with training, the training was going super well. So I kind of clicked in March, and I was racing like 159s, but I was like leading the race, which was pretty new for me. And then we were doing some workouts, all the workouts. Like I did a 6 in like 123 or something. And then like I did a few sets of 400s that were really good. So all of that stuff was leading to the thought that I would be able to run that. And Joe a few times had given like 157 as a benchmark, that he thought I could be running that. Yeah. But personally, I always hate predictor workouts. And I never fully believe when a coach says like, oh, you'll hit this time. I think just mentally it's never sat well with me, because I get in the race and I expect it to be easy, and I almost like forget to try, So even though I was hearing those things, I didn't want to fully believe it, because again, like I know I needed to actually do the work. So then like, that's what I'm saying, that there was, yes, some expectation that it would happen, but also it was a nice surprise when it did. And also just we were peaking for the trials, even though it didn't fully work out. Clearly, like I was at a peak, because then I was able to quickly run, or I was very close to a peak, because then I was able to quickly run really fast races, So in that sense, like it made sense that it was happening then.
And I'm going to give you the names of 4 women athletes. You're allowed 5 words to describe them. Okay. Athingmu.
5 words to describe her?
Yeah, up to 5. What comes to mind? And I do this with most athletes, just Mike got me to start doing it. I started it with Clayton Murphy about a year and a half ago. It just came by accident, and I started throwing these things out, and people came up with really interesting stuff. And it's just you just keep it light. It's if you.
Yeah, I mean, so a thing new. Let's see, phenomenal, wise. What? I think pug. I don't know why. Okay. She's been posting about her pug. Okay, but like, cool. Like lighthearted, I guess.
All right, that's great. All right, Keely Hodgkinson.
Kind, fiery, fast. I don't know.
Okay. Raven Rogers.
Ooh. I don't know why I just thought thunder, but I feel like Raven honestly is the scariest one for me to race, because I'm like, Raven is always coming. Like, I don't know how Raven does it, and honestly, she seems so nice. Whenever I see posts of hers or whatever, like she seems so nice with her friends, but I'm so scared of her when I race. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I know she's a nice person off the track, but holy crap.
She's got a lot. Watching that in Doha totally blew my mind, and I just. And I'm sitting in Tokyo, watching Tokyo, and I'm just going, oh my God. Gemma Riki.
Oh, Gemma. British. I don't know. I don't know why I think laughter or like smiling. She's always very like, maybe because I've roomed with her before. She's fun. Like killer range. I feel like she can both do the mile and the 8 at such a high level. She's the only one I would say that I think is like me in that, or I don't know, not the only one, but yeah, she's a unique one that most of the other 800 runners right now are not as good at the 15. They're much more like sprint based, but Gemma is like a similar kind of pure mid distance runner like me, I guess.
You were asked this in one of the interviews I was listening to recently, what you could think, what your all-out 400 could be. If you did a 400 all-out, what do you think you could do?
I mean, we say like 52, 53. I don't know.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got that closing ability. That's the thing. I mean, I watch what you do in the 800, and you don't seem to get into trouble, and you don't seem to do dumb things in races, which some athletes seem to do, you know. The I like your confidence. Was it hard to develop, or have you always been confident in yourself?
I have always been confident in myself. And I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
I went to an all-girls school. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of like single-sex education. I think it's very helpful for women, especially. So I've always felt like very comfortable in different situations, talking, especially like with male coaches or different things. Like I think that it is a unique development where I don't have the same like sometimes timidness in these situations. Again, my high school coach, I can't even tell you. I think having a high school coach that believes in you is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it really is such an X factor. Like having that person who just thinks that you can do anything you want and I had a number of people, teachers and coaches then from elementary school up to high school that I think just gave me that like core feeling of foundation or whatever.
I understand the single sex school. I went to Bellarmine in San Jose. Before that to Smet. And then my three sisters all went to private school up here, Presentation. You also did the big move, as I call it. You moved from the West Coast, the culture here, to the East Coast, which I did after college. It is a total, for people who haven't done it, cultural change. And being at Yale, and I've got friends who graduated from there, you're in a school, a small liberal arts school with tradition, a huge tradition. One, you got to live up to it. Two, you better get the grades, or good luck. Yeah, we kindest regards. We really enjoyed you. So there's a pressure that comes with it. There's also a prejudice on the East Coast that people on the West Coast surf, smoke weed, and spend a lot of time doing Zen stuff, and don't get up before noon. And what was that like? Was that difficult for you to move from the West to the East Coast?
I'm so happy I did it. I think honestly, I mean, it's hard, but I think if more people can do that cross country move, especially college is a nice time to do it because it's just a short window, or it's a defined window. I mean, our country is so big, and it feels, again, there's like 4 different countries within our country, right? And to be able to experience another area of that, I think is very valuable in understanding how the country works. Personally, I grew up in LA, and I always felt a little bit like a fish out of water in LA. So personally, I loved going to the East Coast for college. College was, I was like, I found my people. I felt like I thrived in that sense. And so that was wonderful. Then after school, I went to Gags's group because that was my main option. It was so nice to have a developmental group on the East Coast. Like, I think honestly, that's the one thing that track and field is great to have. And I think is so valuable, having different pockets of developmental groups around the country, because you realize like people need to stick near their family or their support system right out of school, especially if they're not making very much money. And so to have those things where you don't have to move yourself forever away was very nice. And then I moved, and then I left because honestly, after 2 years, I became very clear to me that like I missed my family, and it is almost like a different country. But it was so wonderful to have that.
You were the first athlete that Wazelle signed, and I followed Wazelle, and I really like Sally in her attitude and her appreciation, putting money back into the sport. What was that like? Was that your first professional contract?
Yes, that was. It was in 2013, and I guess 2012. Anyway, again, another thing that I think is so important for athletes is to have that someone to fill that hole of like, how do you support athletes who maybe aren't going to get a huge contract, but just give them stability for a few years? And that's what that was. It was it was invaluable because basically it was like, okay, I know now in 2013, we signed a 4-year contract. And so it was like, okay, I know that I have support through 2016. I can fully focus on this.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like why I was able to do it. Right. And also it was such a small company, very different, a very unique situation in which I felt like it was a part of a family in terms of my interactions with them.
Who was your agent?
Paul Doyle.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I love Paul. He's
Paul's great. He wasn't my agent. He was my agent starting with my Nike contract. So not 2017. Okay. Yeah.
Who was your agent before that?
I didn't have an agent coming out of college.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was, again, I now people should if they are looking at contracts, but I didn't sign a contract out of college. And so I didn't really need one. And I just like had people help me if I was traveling through the summers. And then Josh Cox for the 2016 year.
Yeah. Josh is a good guy.
Yeah. Josh is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul's been great. And I love working with him.
Are we going to see you do indoors this next season?
I don't think so. Just because I need, kind of focus on, I think, especially as athletes get a little bit older, it's like you want to just maybe focus your 1 week, don't risk the injury. Although that said, it'd be really fun to run a 1K. So
I'd like to see you run a 1K. That would be fun to watch. I think it could be a. Did you ever try the steeplechase?
No, I've never tried it. I don't know. I think the barriers, I guess I'm pretty sturdy, but I think we're not going to do steeple at this point in my life.
Yeah, I teased Allison Felix. She knows the question I'm going to ask her at the end of every interview is, when are you going to do the 400 hurdles? Because she was trained that way, but she says, do not talk to Bobby about it. And I said, no, it isn't going to happen. If you were going to do, so if you weren't an 800 meter runner, this is actually 2 questions. What's the field event you admire the most?
Admire the most.
Are you intrigued by, or you go, gosh, this would be kind of cool to do, but I don't want to get myself injured. But
yeah, I mean, the pole vault is probably the most unique to me because that's the most one that I cannot fathom myself doing it.
Okay.
Just because it's obviously all of them I would not be good at, but or I would need to practice. But just the pole vault is so far removed, and I don't have very much arm strength. So yeah, maybe I'll do the pole vault, or should I stay the pole?
If there was a running event that you don't race at now, what running event do you admire or you would like to try? Or you can even just this one you admire. You go, God, they're fast or something.
Yeah, I do love watching the hurdles. I think the hurdles is so beautiful. The distances, watching 5Ks at this point, especially they go so fast, but I think just the whole mental component of those races is very interesting to me to watch. Also marathons, honestly, I really enjoy watching marathons.
Mm-hmm. Are you a mentally tough runner?
I don't know. Part of me is like, is the 8 better just because I have less time to think, I'm tough in that I think I have shown that I have longevity, that I can come back from disappointment, blah, blah, blah. So I have all that stuff. But I definitely still kind of crap out in workouts occasionally. So it's something that I'm always aware that I need to not let up on.
Do you like to race?
I love to race.
Okay. Do you like to compete?
I love to compete.
Okay. Do you compete at everything?
No.
Okay. Because do you know who Lorraine Mahler is? She's a bronze medalist from 92 and from 88. And I made the mistake of playing a board game with her. And I have never seen someone compete like that at everything. Totally blew my mind. So I was just curious how you were with other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know a lot of people, especially in my world, that are all competitive in everything. And I am not like that at all. I think it's one of the reasons I love racing so much is maybe just because I've let myself only do that kind of competition mindset only in racing, whereas most other things in my life, I actively try to be non-competitive. If anything, like we do volleyball games or different things here, card games, and I'll like get a little annoyed if people are getting too competitive with them.
Do you compartmentalize your life? Like, is this your running and this is your personal life and this is your kind of rest time?
Yeah.
Okay. I find it interesting. I mean, a lot of athletes do that. Okay, I'm down to probably my last couple questions. Social media. Do you spend much time on social media?
I go through phases. This year I have been spending more.
Mm-hmm. What do you like about social media?
I like that you're able to connect with with fans and people who are watching and kind of craft your own story, right? I think sometimes this is a good interview, but sometimes if you're only asked certain questions, it's like very two-dimensional. People don't understand your whole personality. And so I think it enables you to show different sides of yourself.
What question haven't I asked you today that you would like me to ask you?
You've asked a lot of good ones. I love that you asked about Jimmy and about Coach Young, because again, I think those coaches are really formative.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
How long are you going to compete? Where are you at right now? Right? I mean, we going to see you in Paris 2024?
We're on a year-by-year schedule right now. So
okay. Yeah. All right. What do you want to do after you're a professional runner? Have you contemplated that?
Yes, it always changes. Recently, I'm really interested in working with, like being like kind of the idea of a financial advisor for people like me. So people, I mean, I feel like I was lucky to have people I could look up to, but that a lot of sport athletes don't, and that they make mistakes.
Very true. Very true. That's actually a good idea. I think your experience, I mean, that was part of the problem. I mean, there's athletes I know from the 70s who are still living off their money that they got under the table because they did real estate, and but there's also people who made a lot of money who have nothing, and that's got to be a challenge. What do you love about running?
What do I love about running? I mean, in the day-to-day, I love the freedom of it. I love the social aspect. I'm someone who very much is like kind of awe-inspired. So I love just like being able to get onto nature and have those little moments alone or with people, just like whatever. Yeah, beauty and joy. And competing, I love the container for competition. And I think it's just so pure and so fun to just give everything to training and then to a race. And more and more I realize that that's like unique in life to be able to have that much purpose. And so trying to make the most of it while I can do it.
Hey, here's your final question. What do you love about the 800 meters? Why are you, as people, I think Tom Walsh, the coach, called you last week a pure 800 meter runner. I would tend to call you a classic 800 meter runner. Seb was more of a sprint guy coming up from the 400. Juan Torino was like that, but Juan Torino was really a strong guy. And a thing is kind of more of a sprinter. But you're very classic. And I mean, and it's really been telling that you come back to that event again, after being away from it since 2016, and you have such huge success.
This is the thing. Well, I maybe don't wish you would ask, but this is the one thing that I think that sometimes is misunderstood. In terms of me having such good success right now, I think kind of the question it begs is like, what would that have maybe meant if I had trained for the 8 the whole time, right? Like, would I be better or whatever without this. And I think some people are obviously it's impressive for me to do this. So I'm happy that I did. But it also, in a way, is like, does that just mean that like my top end potential was higher that I just was not able to tap, or because I wasn't training for it in the middle. And I think that's what sometimes is missed in terms of like people wondering why I was able to do this much this year, that maybe like in the end, you just aren't seeing whatever like my full PR could have been. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to do an addendum to that question then. Do you think you're capable of 156? After
the Monaco race, yeah, but that's Good. Always how you feel after a PR, right? Is you're like, oh, yeah. I could have done more. I think I can run faster next year, and I think
cool. Well, Kate Grace, this has been really fun talking with you. Thank you. I hope to see you next spring. I want to be there when you run that 156. So thank you again. My best to Emma and to Joe and to Dom and your whole crew. I've interviewed a lot of them. They're so much fun, and you're with good people. And I think that's the coolest stuff, of all. But so you survived. We planned 40. I think we went 48 minutes. So I had to ask him to add on, but I wanted to because there was questions that needed to be asked. So, Kate, thank you so much. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, and this is Socially the Distance. We got to talk with Kate Grace today. She's an Olympian. She trains with Team Boss, and she had some fabulous races this summer, and we got to ask her about a lot of cool stuff. Kate, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This is your favorite program, Socialing the Distance. And this is the epilogue, Larry's monologue, or sometimes what Michael affectionately calls a kind of conversation with Larry, except I'm the only one chatting. So today we're talking about Kate Grace. We interviewed Kate Grace, and been wanting to interview Kate for 2 years. I have watched her run since Marlboro High School, and I've been fascinated with her development, her running. I got a kick out of her going from Marlboro High to Yale, going from the West Coast to the East Coast, totally different life cultures. Something I recommend for any kid on the West Coast. And I recommend kids on the East Coast coming out West. Learn more about the country or going to the Midwest. But Kate went from Marlboro to Yale. She was a very fine runner at Marlboro High. She had a great high school coach who she still speaks with and is one of those people, if you're lucky enough to have, that is almost a life advisor. And she ran 2:10 for the 800 in high school, but she's also a very fine cross-country runner. And that combination, that strength, that classic 800, she then moved to Yale. She was one of the few Yale athletes that made it out of conference and continued to develop. And then in 2012, when she went pro, she was the first athlete sponsored by Oiselle. She ran 2:04 in college, dabbled in the other events, but she's really a classic 800-meter runner. In 2016, she made the Olympic team, and she hadn't run the 800 since 2016. She's trained with Frank Gaglione, aka Gags. She has trained with Jerry Schumacher, with the Bowerman Track Club. She's now with Joe Bossard at Team Boss and that amazing group of women athletes there. And what I liked about Kate is she has a really nice confidence in herself and her decisions to move from various coaching groups, and she's been with some of the best. The Bowerman group, she told me day in, day out, she was training with an exceptional group of women, and the workouts were quite intense. But she was training more for the
1500, and there was a call for her to do inside the 800. This year, she nearly made the Olympic team. Had a pretty rough last 100 meters. But then she had 3 races in a row where she ran in 127, a 157, a PB each time. And then I thought her best race of the year was her end of the season, the Zurich Diamond League meet, where I remember watching her, and she just didn't, she looked a little angry. And what I found in looking back is that when Kate Grace looks a little angry, watch out. She very seldom makes bad moves in her races. She's a student of the sport, quite articulate. This is one of the most fun interviews that I've been able to do in a long, long time. She was relaxed. She dropped an F-bomb, which kind of cracked me up a little bit. But what it told me was she was really thinking about what she was saying. And she was allowing us, and you, dear viewers, and myself, to really see what makes her tick. And I've been fascinated about that for a while. She's one of our finest runners. She's battling athletes like Raven Saunders, who she said scares the heck out of her sometimes because she doesn't know how she makes that incredible move in Athing Mu. She admires them and she has to compete with them. So she's in a rarefied time in a rarefied world. I asked her how fast she can run. She thinks 156. I think it'll take 156 to make a world championship team in the U.S. in the next 3 to 4 years, or an Olympic team. That is the quality of the women's 800. Some runners come from the 400 to the 800. Athing Mu, Raven Saunders, Seb Coe. Kate is more of a, she's more of a classic 800 runner, a real middle distance runner. She's run 4:03 for the 1500. I think she can break 4. She's run a 4:22 mile. Her 4:27 this year had a screaming last 150. So she's got the wheels. She would like to do 1,000 meters, and I think that could be a really fun distance for her. So I look forward to seeing her do that, and I look forward to seeing her do a 156. Thank you, Kate, for spending the time with us. And thanks to Mike Deering, our production manager, who manages all this. Stay safe, my friends. Wear a mask inside, exercise, hydrate, and watch Socialing the Distance and pass it on to your friends. Peace out.